I spent literally the whole night teaching the cat Pythagoras theorem. And then I realised I didn't know it, so it was an uphill struggle all the way. Oh, hello. Welcome to Volume 38 of Ask a Brit. Volume 38, of course, marks a new record for the most amount of Ask a Brit videos in history. Of course, every Ask a Brit episode does that as we go, so it's not really that amazing. But, of course, this is the format in which I ask you fine people... I got a frog in my throat, not literally. That would be awful, especially being a vegetarian and just a human who eats frogs. But this is the format in which I ask you fine people to ask me any question you like, so long as you use the hashtag AskABrit in the comments below. That way I can find your question in the comments next week and hopefully include your question in there. But the first question this week, and by the way, I skipped a week because last week I was ill. It's ongoing, by the way, and there will be an update on that pretty soon. But the first question this week, I repeated the questions I was going to do last week, so that to give those previous askers a chance. I'm from the north, so I don't say chance. First questions, because they're kind of similar, related, come from Nico Queen and CM. And Nico Queen asks, is the X for kisses, right, that you put in a card, only a British thing, because no one else seems to know what it means? Well, so I've heard that actually, Americans in the not too distant past did use those X's at the end of signing a Christmas card or whatever it might be. But it's sort of been on the wane in recent years, but we still do it. And so, yeah, it just means have a kiss at Christmas. Nothing intrusive. It's possibly on the understanding that there'll be mistletoe above you and all that. Although, we don't just use these kisses at Christmas. We'll find them in cards of all sorts. Birthday cards, get well cards, commiseration cards. You might not put it in those. Could seem patronizing, suppose. And so, yeah, we use it for many purposes. And CM asks, what's up with the X at the end of text messages? Same thing, just means, all right, love. It's showing affection, which is odd for a British person, right? But we can do it through the digital form because it's colder that way. Not as cold as many people that live in the US, and I mean that temperature-wise, because it's freezing outside here in Chicago right now. But we don't get temperatures like that in the UK. Anyway, that's what those kisses are for. Next question comes from Anna, and Anna asks, how did you make learning each other's cultures fun, as in me and Tara? Do you still, after all this time, find that you're both learning new things about each other's cultures? Yeah, definitely. I mean, firstly, obviously, the language barrier was the biggest hurdle to overcome. Still overcoming it, I'm not proficient in my second language of American yet. I'm getting there. I'm learning all of the tricks of the trade. But I think that, that's one of the big things. I mean, it's obviously humorous when we're having these language back and forth. So there's that. In fact, in many ways, that sort of division of a common language brings you together in a way. It gives you something to talk about, because gosh knows that's hard enough as it is. I'm kidding. We have a great conversation. Just the other day, actually, I was at the hospital and I needed a Kleenex, right? And I could see a box of Kleenexes, but they were behind the desk of the receptionist. And I thought maybe it'd be a bit rude to go and borrow her Kleenexes, because I'm British, you don't want to be intrusive in that way. And she said, just go up and ask for one. What's wrong with you? And I said, I'll tell you what's wrong with you. I was born in a country that sees that as rude, and therefore best keep our distance. Yeah. So I kept my distance and also a runny nose for the rest of the day. I was in a hospital, so that was good. They could treat me for, cold. And so it's things like that. It'll be these things where there's just too much politeness on my part that she doesn't have. She's not polite. She is polite. She's not impolite, but she's not polite in that British way. So she's not here right now. I'm talking to a brick wall. So it's not brick. I live in America, but it is a wall. The next question comes from Josh Davis, and Josh asks, has your weight or body composition changed at all since moving to America? I would think so, due to the overall more fattening cuisine in the US. Well, you say that. I mean, look, in Britain, we have things like Yorkshire puddings and lots of pies. So we're not exactly, good on the calorie count ourselves. But yes, the thing that actually, I think, got me here was the free refills on pop and soda when I was still drinking that stuff. And the lack of sidewalks when I lived not in the city, so it was harder to get around on foot. But that's since changed, and I live in Chicago, and go northern again. Go northern. I go back to my accent. It's easier because that's who I am, right? And I did put on weight. Yeah, I did. I put on about 30 pounds, which, you know, in British terminology is about 2 stone and 2 pounds. That was bad. I lost it. And then I got a bit unwell last year, as I've documented and will continue to document, you know, not in a way that's excessive, but it will, I'll keep you guys informed. And so, you know, I find I wasn't able to exercise over the winter period, and thus put on a pound or two, but I'm not worried about that. It's all going to come off once this issue is resolved. But yeah, I definitely put on weight. And then I just had this epiphany, I think, if epiphany is the right word, if a rather pretentious sounding one, that I needed to sort myself out. So I did, and I gave up a lot of things that I was consuming to excess, Coke being one of those, not cocaine. I've had to make that point again and again, especially the other day when I was out in the snow and I came back in and it was all on my sleeve. Tara thought the worst, because I don't usually go out in the snow, you know. But I gave up Coca-Cola and just pop in general. And meat, of course, and chocolate there for a while, although that was just it was too hard, so I went back to it. But I don't eat as much of it. I do, because Christmas happened. But, you know, wherever I've lived, England or America, it's often been, you know, something that I've been concerned with, my weight, you know, not for vanity purposes, more for just health and general fitness and all of that. You know, I want to be able to get around when I'm 50. I want to be able to get around when I'm 36. That's proving difficult sometimes. So, yeah, I mean, it's definitely something to focus on. Laurie Millett, next question. Tea time, do they still do that in England? I still want to know. Yes, I believe they do still do tea time in the UK, but it's mostly a northern thing. So tea time in the UK is another way of saying dinner time. So we have, you know, in the UK we have dinner at midday. That's lunch. We call lunch dinner, and then dinner time, as the rest of the English-speaking world knows it, is tea time. You know, not because we're drinking tea, although we might have it with it, but just because, you know, I'm sure there is a historic purpose behind it. And then I moved south to London, and people thought it was odd that I would order mushy peas for tea time, because they didn't even know what mushy peas were, much less tea time. So yeah, tea time is still around. You know, I haven't said it in years, because now that I've lived in the US, it's just, you know, lunch, dinner, brunch, breakfast. You know, what was the other one we came up with the other day? Dunch. It's between lunch and dinner. So it's no wonder that America has that obesity issue, just because it has so many meal times. You know, supper as well. Although supper is another name, at least here in the Midwest, for dinner. So it goes on and on and on. I should do an entire video about all of the mealtime words that we have here. Next question comes from Art on the Fridge, and I think I said last name that yours was YouTube name of the week. It might prove to be so this week, but we do still have some more names to come, so hang in there, because it is a prestigious award given by me. Have you considered low-budget travel like couch surfing, camping, staying at a hostel, house swapping and such? Yes, I have. In fact, I've done it before. Me and my wife, we stayed on the sofa of this just person in Indianapolis. I don't know why. We were living in Indianapolis at the time, but I think we were just trialing the whole couch surfing thing. For anybody that doesn't know, couch surfing is kind of a website where you sign up to it, and you know, members of couch surfing can then stay on each other's couches, sofas. You know, you don't actually surf on them. That'd be a waste of a sofa, and it'd pollute the sea, you know, in many ways. But it's a good free way to get around. There is a level of trust that's involved here. So there's background checks done by the website. I don't know how thorough these background checks are. I hope they're quite thorough. I just kind of took Tara's word for it. But for all we know, this lovely Asian lady might have been a mass murderer. You know, it seemed unlikely. She was perfectly nice. And so we did that. Certainly staying at places like hostels and all of that. I enjoy staying in hostels. I used to do it quite a lot in England when I was travelling about a bit, and I stayed in one in York and had my shoes stolen by the staff. Don't know why. That was really weird. And then I stayed at a hostel here in Chicago, weirdly enough, before I moved here. It was actually long ago, about 10 years ago, when I was visiting. It was my first ever visit to Chicago, and my glasses melted on a radiator. So I've not had the best of luck when it comes to my material possessions in a hostel, but I've had a lot of luck with a good night's sleep. I always sleep well in them, and I don't know why that is. So yeah, they would definitely be in there. And camping is something that Tara and I love to do as well. In fact, gosh, wouldn't it be great to go to, you know, the Badlands National Park or something like that, take your tent with you and stay there for 6 weeks. You know, it might get a bit uncomfortable after a while. And Art on the Fridge has another question. Might you dedicate a video to your lovely cats? How you ended up getting them, what they're like, their quirks and such. You know, if I did that, it would go straight to their head. I put a photograph of Kafka on Instagram the other day, right? And he got 92 likes, which is above average for us. Went right to his head. He hasn't stopped talking about it. At least that's what I assume. He meows at me all the time. Could be asking for food. But I think for the most part, he was saying, haha, I get more likes than you little... You know, he does insult me in many ways. But maybe I will. If there's interest. I just don't know that there is interest on the internet for cat videos, though. You know, so Adrian Lamb, I'm drunk right now. This didn't start until I was 22, which I'm proud of. What age did you start seriously drinking? That's brilliant. I got a drunk comment, and the answer to that, Adrian, is 4. So my Aunt Rose used to give me sherry. Not too much, just 3 shots here and there. No, I'm kidding. Don't start calling the authorities. I wasn't really 4, I was 8. But in all seriousness, I seriously started drinking at about 16, which, at least back in the day, I can't really talk about how it is now, but back when I was 16, that was kind of normal, even though the drinking age was 18. I, in essence, broke the law and my liver, but, you know, it did recover, and I continue to drink. At university thereafter. Nowadays, I drink a lot less. I would say I maybe drink about 2 glasses of wine a week, despite, you know, my common references to alcohol. I think it just goes hand in hand with that Britishness. Some have even suggested that I've been drunk while doing these videos, which, you know, I can kind of see that. But the truth is, I haven't in all of them, you know, just about 6 of the last 20. And that's a good ratio, I think. Okay, next question comes from Judy Reyes. And Judy asks, can you please explain the difference between British pudding and dessert? Well, that gets us back onto ththose differences with meal times in a way, right? Because you can have dessert. And we use the word dessert, you know, in the UK. In fact, we'd be more likely to use that when referring to the meal time, that is the sweet that follows dinner. But the actual plate that turns up might be referred to as a pudding. So you could, I could get a chocolate cake, and instead of saying, "Oh, good, dessert's here," we might say, pudding's up. But pudding can be used to refer to other things. I mean, think of Yorkshire pudding. It's not a dessert. It is a side on a main meal, a Sunday roast. You could have a Yorkshire pudding with a Sunday roast, and I think it's appropriate to go all northern here because I'm talking about Yorkshire pudding, right, and gravy, and Yorkshire pudding is lovely, but it's nothing to do with what we usually call pudding. Spotted dick is a pudding. And that's it for this episode of Ask a Brit. Keep your questions coming using the hashtag AskABrit, and don't forget to follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and you can also go to my website, lostinthepond.com. Dun dun dun. I don't know why I did that. Sorry, it's really not that intense. Bye.